Your employer does not care about you. I'm telling you that now because this video is about should you be able to retire. And a lot of people worry that their company is going to struggle without them. Their colleagues, people they built relationships over the previous decades will care. And the truth is, your colleagues will mourn your loss and not care about you in about a month, if that. Think about any company you've ever worked at and just remember that loads of people came and went, and you probably don't remember half their names. You probably have some fond memories, and it's very rare that you're still talking to remotely any of the people that you've dealt with over the course of your career spanning different companies, which is pretty harrowing. I know. I'm Chuck Ryan. I'm a chartered financial planner, and part of what I do is helping people and making them realize it's time to retire. The average person in the UK retires around 65. You can access the state pension, the government pension, from age 67, soon it'll be 68. But you can access your private pensions a whole decade sooner at 57. Well, it's actually 55, but it's rising to 57 in no time at all. What this means is that you don't have to wait till you get the state pension to retire. In fact, if you've got enough savings, you can retire significantly sooner. And the key things for you to understand is that if you have enough money, are you going to run out? And what you're going to do with that time. Lots of people opt to doing part-time or an NED, a non-executive directorship position, like a consultancy role, and continue working for a little bit longer to get that income to help bridge the gap between retirement, state retirement, etc. You need to understand how much you need, first and foremost, to retire. The crude way of working this out is to look at your monthly expenses, times them by 12, maybe add an extra 5% as a margin of error, or a few £100 or whatever it may be, and then times it by how many years you expect to be in retirement for. So a good rule of thumb is annual expenses times 25. And that could be slightly longer if you are younger and slightly shorter if you're a bit older. So if I was 65 and I was looking to retire, and I know the average life expectancy is 84, roughly 85, then I'd do my expenses times 20 years. Annual expenses times 20 years. That's a really rough rule. I would obviously seek financial advice to do that and ensure you've got a proper strategy, because the way you access your income is just as important as the way you seek to retire. What this means is you need your money to be invested. So it's growing above inflation. That's a core principle. Most people are trying to target around a 7% year-on-year growth return with their investments. So 3 or 4% for inflation and the rest to take as income. That is following something called the safe withdrawal rate, which is typically to take 4% of your total pot on a yearly basis as income. One of the core things about deciding to retire is what you'll do with that time. What's also important is what you have left to pay off. Do you still have a mortgage? Should you be taking your tax-free cash from your pension to pay off your mortgage? And in most cases, the investment return is better than the interest rate on your mortgage. If you're paying, maybe 2, 3, or 4% on interest rate on your mortgage, and you've only got a few years until you start receiving your state pension, then it probably makes sense to kind of retire and then use your savings to start paying off the mortgage, rather than taking a big lump sum, which is working and growing, and clearing the mortgage in one shot. Now, I don't know enough about you to make that financial advice in this video, but it's important for you to know your options. The minimum standard of living in retirement, according to a Pension Bee review, is that a single person would need £13,400 a year. That I'd say is pretty about right. If you're thinking you're spending £300-400 a month on utilities, you're spending maybe an extra £100 a week on food, and a couple £100 a month on personal bills, gym memberships, travel, etc. 13,400 is probably about right. And now, if you're a couple, it becomes 21,600 for a minimum standard of living. For a moderate standard, e.g., going on holiday a few times a year, etc., then it jumps up quite considerably to £31,700 a year for a single person, or £43,900 for a couple. Now, I think £43,000 or £44,000, to round it up by £100, is a lot of money. I think £32,000 for a single person in retirement is a significant, an insane amount of money. If you've got no kind of outstanding debts, that's a lot of money. And the average person that I meet and do financial planning for is actually spending realistically anywhere between 15 to 24,000, which I know is a very large range, but the type of clients I deal with are the everyday person to extremely wealthy people, and even extremely wealthy people I know and have as clients spend less than that 44,000 a year in retirement as a couple. And you have to think is that the state pension is around 12,500, and if there's two of you, you're in a relationship, then that's £25,000 of guaranteed income. That is inflation linked because of the triple lock. So income isn't really going to be the biggest factor in retiring. You're going to have some level of guaranteed income. Having your pensions boosted in your final years before retiring, really maximizing your contributions for as long as possible prior to retirement, is going to be essential to help give you an extra cushion for comfortability in retirement. That's not to say that you should put off retirement. I think retiring at some level, going down to part-time and kind of easing your way into those twilight years is incredibly important, so you actually get to enjoy your life whilst you're still healthy. Now, I've done a number of videos on retirement. In fact, I've got a whole playlist that I'll display on the screen in a second. But I just want you to think about what you'll do at that time, because retirement ultimately comes down to purpose. Things that are important to you, things that you've put off, whether that's just watching Netflix or learning how to solve a Rubik's Cube or doing some pottery or just going on walks or just chilling down at the pub with your mates or laying on a beach. It comes down to what type of life you want in retirement. And a lot of people need significantly less than they think. I've got clients that could have retired a whole decade sooner had they had financial planning, or at least had these type of conversations with themselves and with their partner. So please do give that a think about when you're deciding what you're going to do with your next steps. And most importantly, just remember, we don't live forever. So make sure you make the most of your time and use it wisely. Thank you.